The Galactic Empire had ruled over countless star systems for centuries. Their reach stretched across the galaxy like a vast web of power, controlling planets and species with ruthless precision. From the smallest colony to the grandest of cities, the Empire's will was absolute. No one dared to challenge their might. The Empire's fleets, each one a massive armada of warships, were feared by all. The soldiers, the generals, the fleets, everything about them screamed power. In the heart of the Empire, the Emperor himself sat on his throne, a man whose name was whispered across the galaxy with fear. The Empire was unchallenged, unstoppable. It had crushed hundreds of civilizations that once thought themselves strong. It had brought entire planets to their knees with a single fleet. So when the Galactic Empire turned its gaze toward Earth, the blue planet in the distant corner of the galaxy, they didn't even bat an eye. To them, Earth was a primitive world, isolated, underdeveloped, and insignificant. They knew the Earthlings were a young species, still learning the ways of space travel. Their technology was rudimentary at best. The Empire had surveyed the planet from afar, watching the humans grow, but never taking them seriously. They had not yet developed advanced weapons or the ability to challenge the mighty Empire. The humans, in the eyes of the Empire, were a tiny pebble in the vast cosmic ocean. The Emperor's fleet could easily crush them in a matter of days. The Empire's officers often laughed at the thought of Earth's inhabitants ever posing a threat. What can they do? They would say to each other, mocking the humans' attempts at space exploration. They can barely travel beyond their own moon. They haven't even mastered interstellar flight. They are weak. The Galactic Fleet's massive warships were equipped with advanced energy weapons that could obliterate entire cities with a single strike. Their battleships were invulnerable to most kinds of attack, and their military was unmatched. They had conquered countless planets, each more advanced and dangerous than the last. But Earth was nothing. It was a speck in the grand scheme of things. The Galactic Empire's generals made their plans. They would send a fleet of ships to Earth, not to conquer it, but to make an example of it. The Emperor believed that a swift show of force would be enough to scare the humans into submission. They would deliver an ultimatum: surrender now or face total destruction. The Empire's strategy was simple: overwhelm them with sheer might. There was no need for elaborate tactics, no need for complex operations. The humans had nothing to counter the Empire's power. As the Empire's fleet set course for Earth, the commanders on board their warships prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory. They would arrive at the human world, make their demands, and leave without a fight. It was a mission that hardly required the full attention of the Empire's best officers. The human race was seen as nothing more than a nuisance, an obstacle that would be crushed without even breaking a sweat. Little did the Empire know, Earth had been quietly preparing for this moment for years. The humans had been working in secret, developing new technologies, refining their tactics, and training their forces. They knew the Empire was coming, and they knew they needed to be ready. The humans may have been underestimated, but they weren't weak. As the Empire's fleet closed in on Earth's orbit, a wave of excitement passed through the Empire's ranks. Victory was assured. The humans had no chance. They would bend the knee, or they would be destroyed. The generals and admirals were already planning their next conquest, thinking that Earth would be just another footnote in the Empire's history. The idea of resistance from Earth seemed laughable. How could a species so young, so untested, stand up to the might of the Galactic Empire? But as the fleet approached Earth, something unexpected began to unfold. The human leaders, who had been considered insignificant by the Empire, were far more resourceful than anyone had anticipated. Earth's forces had been secretly preparing for years, and they had a surprise waiting for the Empire that would soon shake the foundation of the galaxy. What the Empire didn't know was that Earth had a weapon they could never have imagined. A weapon that would not only challenge the Empire's supremacy, but would shake its very core. The human fleet was ready to respond to the Empire's invasion, and it wasn't the feeble, easy target the Empire had assumed. The Empire's commanders were confident, arrogant even, in their plans. They had dismissed Earth as weak, as primitive, as insignificant. But the truth was, they had underestimated humanity. The first steps of their plan were about to unfold, and the Empire's confidence would soon be shattered. As the Empire's ships neared Earth, a strange, unsettling feeling began to spread through the fleet. Something was off. The humans hadn't given up. They hadn't submitted. The Empire's officers, who had expected a quick victory, were starting to wonder if they had miscalculated. But it was too late for second thoughts. The Empire was committed, and Earth was about to show them just how wrong they were. In the next few moments, the balance of power would begin to shift, and the Empire's confidence would quickly turn to fear. They had underestimated Earth, and now they would have to pay the price. The vast, menacing fleet of the Galactic Empire moved through the black void of space, its colossal warships and dreadnoughts gliding silently toward Earth. The Empire's commanders were full of excitement, their thoughts already focused on the impending victory. Victory over a planet they considered weak, backward, and incapable of mounting any kind of defense. The human race, in their eyes, was little more than an insignificant blip in the grand scheme of the galaxy. As the fleet drew nearer to Earth, the Imperial commanders marveled at the immense power of their ships. The thought of Earth's feeble defenses being no match for the might of the Empire put smiles on their faces. They had already decided how they would proceed. The demands would be issued, the humans would comply, and the Empire would move on to their next conquest. Simple, efficient, undisturbed. The communication channels on the warships buzzed with reports of their progress, and the officers were already congratulating themselves on the easy victory that was just moments away. The Empire had crushed far more powerful civilizations with ease, so Earth was no challenge. They had no reason to believe otherwise. However, what the Empire didn't know was that the humans had anticipated this. Earth wasn't as helpless as they thought. Despite being outmatched in technology, the human race had one crucial advantage: ingenuity. The humans had always thrived in difficult circumstances, using their resourcefulness to overcome seemingly impossible odds. And in the silence of their cities and hidden military installations, they had been quietly preparing for this very moment. Deep within Earth's military command centers, high-ranking officers sat in tense silence. They had seen the Imperial fleet coming, and they knew that once the fleet arrived, it would be too late to prepare. There was no way to stop the Empire's overwhelming might with traditional weapons. The humans didn't have the numbers, the ships, or the advanced technology to fight the Empire in a straight battle. But they did have something else. They had a secret weapon. Years of quiet research had led to a revolutionary breakthrough. Humanity had developed the means to teleport vast distances in an instant, an achievement that was light years ahead of anything the Empire had ever thought possible. The humans had designed a fleet of teleporting warships, ready to make their move at the right time. The first of these ships had been deployed just days earlier, hidden in the deepest recesses of Earth's atmosphere, undetected by the Empire's sensors. These ships were unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. Armed with experimental energy weapons that could tear through the toughest armor, and outfitted with teleportation technology that allowed them to strike without warning, these ships were humanity's answer to the Empire's arrogance. When the first of the human teleport fleets activated their jump engines, it was a complete surprise to the Empire. In an instant, the skies above the Imperial fleet were filled with an explosion of light. The human ships appeared out of nowhere, materializing in the midst of the enemy formation. The commanders on the Imperial warships were caught off guard, their sensors failing to detect any threat until it was far too late. The Empire had relied on its immense superiority, but now they were facing an unexpected and terrifying force. The human ships, swift and agile, darted through the sky, launching powerful energy blasts at the Imperial ships before they even had time to react. The first strike was a total surprise, and the Empire's fleet was thrown into chaos. The once confident Imperial commanders now scrambled to respond to a threat they hadn't even known existed. For the first time in a long time, the Galactic Empire was caught off balance. The Empire's superiority was being tested, and they quickly realized they had made a grave mistake in underestimating Earth. The human ships were fast, precise, and capable of inflicting serious damage. The Empire's massive warships were not invincible after all. The battle was far from over, but the Empire's arrogance was already beginning to crack. The humans had shown that they were not the weak, helpless species the Empire had imagined. They had fought back, hard, and they weren't about to stop now. The human fleets continued their assault, striking quickly and disappearing before the Empire could respond. Every time the Empire thought they had gained the upper hand, the humans were already gone, their ships slipping away into the shadows of space. The once unstoppable Empire now found itself in a fight for survival, its massive fleet struggling to adapt to the unexpected and devastating tactics of the human invaders. The human fleets had proved their worth, and the Empire, which had laughed at the very idea of humanity being a threat, was now starting to question everything. The Galactic Empire had underestimated Earth, and now they were paying the price. As the battle raged on, the Empire's generals started to wonder just how many of these strange, teleporting ships were out there. Were there more coming? How many had the humans hidden in the depths of their world? How could they have been so blind? It was clear now. Earth wasn't the weak, defenseless planet they thought it was. Humanity had power, and the Empire was beginning to feel the full weight of their mistake. The Galactic Empire's commanders had expected an easy victory. They had planned their invasion meticulously, convinced that Earth's outdated technology and underdeveloped military would crumble before the might of their vast fleet. But as their warships drifted helplessly in space, the reality of their mistake began to settle in. Humanity had proven to be far more capable than they could have ever imagined. The Empire's once unshakable confidence was now fraying at the edges. Their enormous warships, brimming with weaponry and firepower, were no match for the speed and precision of the human fleet. The teleporting ships continued to strike with surgical accuracy, appearing from nowhere to launch devastating attacks before disappearing just as quickly. The human ships were fast, unpredictable, and relentless. No matter how many times the Empire's ships tried to track them, the humans were always one step ahead. The Empire's warships, large and imposing, now seemed cumbersome and slow, their weapons ineffective against the human fleet's lightning-fast strikes. Each teleporting human ship carried a devastating payload, energy-based weaponry that tore through the Empire's shields like paper, leaving the once indestructible warships vulnerable. With each passing moment, the Imperial fleet was being whittled down. Their commanders scrambled to coordinate counterattacks, but their communications were disrupted by the unexpected enemy presence. The humans had done their homework. Their technology was designed to disrupt the Empire's communications, rendering their vast fleet vulnerable. Inside the flagship of the Imperial fleet, Admiral Zoran paced back and forth, his face a mask of frustration. He had seen countless battles, each one fought against far stronger adversaries, and yet nothing had prepared him for this. The humans had turned the tables on them in a way that no one had anticipated. "Report," Zoran barked, his voice a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Fifth Fleet. Their ships have been destroyed, and our communications are being jammed by a signal we can't trace," one of the officers replied. Zoran's hands clenched into fists. "What do you mean, we can't trace it? They're just humans. How are they doing this?" "They're using some form of advanced technology, Admiral. The human ships are teleporting in and out of our sensors range. They appear, attack, and then vanish before we can react," another officer reported. Zoran's mind raced. The enemy had caught them off guard. No, that wasn't just it. They had outwitted them completely. The Galactic Empire, which had crushed countless civilizations, was now on the defensive, struggling to combat the very species it had once dismissed as insignificant. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Humanity's leaders were watching the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and disbelief. The secret weapon that had been in development for years was finally proving its worth. The teleportation fleet had been humanity's last-ditch effort against the overwhelming forces of... Elaine's gaze shifted to the map of the galaxy, which now showed the remnants of the Imperial fleet pulling back. The Empire had underestimated humanity, but now they would never make that mistake again. Earth was no longer just a planet in the distant corners of the galaxy. They had arrived on the galactic stage. "We've just begun," Elaine said to herself, her voice barely audible above the hum of the command center. "This is only the beginning." The victory over the Empire had sent ripples throughout the galaxy. News of the defeat spread like wildfire. And soon, even the farthest reaches of the galaxy would know what humanity was capable of. For now, though, Elaine allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had taken the first step in a much larger journey. Meanwhile, the remnants of the Galactic Empire were left to lick their wounds. The great empire that had once crushed entire civilizations now found itself humiliated by a species they had thought weak and insignificant. Their retreat would be marked in history as the moment the balance of power shifted. Admiral Zoran stood in the quiet of his flagship's command room, his face ashen. His fleet was decimated, and the humiliation was almost unbearable. He had believed in his arrogance that humanity could be swept aside with ease. Now, as he surveyed the damaged ships and the scattered remnants of his fleet, he realized just how wrong he had been. "Prepare for the next phase," Zoran said coldly to his officers, though his voice betrayed a note of doubt. "We've been beaten, but this war is far from over." In the distance, Earth remained calm. The skies were clear, and the people were oblivious to the true significance of the battle that had just been fought. But in the corridors of power, both on Earth and across the galaxy, one thing was clear. The Galactic Empire had been bested by humanity, and the consequences of that victory would ripple across the galaxy for years to come. The stars in the galaxy continued to burn with their eternal light, but for Admiral Zoran and his fleet, the battle was far from over. Despite the humbling defeat they had just experienced, the Empire was not one to surrender easily. In the depths of space, far from prying eyes, the Empire began to regroup, forming plans that could potentially turn the tide. The human victory had rattled them, but the Empire's leaders refused to accept defeat. Zoran paced back and forth in the dimly lit command room of the last remaining Imperial flagship. His officers, still shell-shocked by the loss, stood in silence. The weight of their failure hung heavily in the air. "We cannot let this stand," Zoran growled. "We will rebuild, and we will make them pay for this humiliation." The officers nodded grimly, but their minds were filled with doubt. They had seen what the humans were capable of, what their mysterious teleportation technology could do, and it terrified them. The human fleet had struck fast, with deadly precision, but the Empire had been overconfident, dismissing Earth as weak and insignificant. Now, that mistake could cost them everything. "We'll need to act quickly," one of the senior officers said hesitantly. "If we give them time to regroup, they will only grow stronger." Zoran slammed his fist on the table. "We have no time to waste. We will strike at their heart. We know where their fleet is based. We'll attack Earth itself." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Earth was now the symbol of humanity's strength, the beating heart of their newfound power. Taking on Earth would be no easy task, but Zoran's mind was set. He was convinced that if they could destroy Earth, they could break humanity's spirit. "We've been outplayed by them once, but not again," Zoran muttered. "We'll send every remaining warship we have. We will bombard them from the skies until there's nothing left." As the Empire prepared to launch its final assault on Earth, they underestimated one crucial factor. While the Empire was consumed with revenge and their plans for retaliation, humanity was not resting on its laurels. The human fleet, though victorious, had already begun to prepare for the next stage of the battle. General Elaine Winters and her team of strategists had known that the Empire would retaliate. It was only a matter of time. Back on Earth, inside a highly secured command room, General Winters and her officers were discussing their next move. "We know they'll come. We can't afford to be caught off guard again," Elaine said, her voice calm but filled with determination. She was right. The Empire had lost one battle, but they were far from defeated. They would return, and this time, humanity would need to be ready. The Empire had underestimated Earth's resolve once, and they would not make that mistake again. "I want every ship ready for action," Elaine continued. "We'll need to defend Earth, and we'll need to do it quickly. The Empire won't waste any time regrouping. We need to hit them hard before they have a chance to launch their full-scale assault." The tension in the room was palpable. The weight of the upcoming battle hung heavily over everyone, but there was no fear in their eyes. The humans had proven their worth. They had faced the might of the Empire and emerged victorious. They would do it again. As the human fleet prepared for the inevitable confrontation, the Empire's warships began their slow advance toward Earth. The Empire was bringing everything it had left to bear. They had learned their lesson. Underestimating humanity was no longer an option. The final battle was about to begin. Far above Earth, a fleet of Imperial warships moved into position, their weapons primed for destruction. The time for negotiation was long past. There would be no more tricks, no more teleports, no more surprises. The Empire had prepared for this day for centuries. They would show humanity that they were still the dominant force in the galaxy. Zoran's warships, though fewer in number, were armed with some of the most devastating weapons in the galaxy. The fleet was massive, a display of sheer power and destruction. The Empire had learned from its earlier mistakes. This time, they would not allow humanity to escape so easily. The human fleet, though smaller, was filled with soldiers who had proven their mettle. General Winters and her crew knew the stakes. Earth was not just a planet. They had something far more valuable at stake now. Their victory was a symbol, and if the Empire succeeded in crushing them, it would be a victory for oppression, for tyranny. Humanity would have to fight with everything they had to keep the Empire from claiming Earth as their own. As the Empire's ships neared Earth, their ominous silhouettes against the stars sent a shiver through the human fleet. But the humans were prepared. They would not let their home fall into the hands of the Empire. The countdown to battle had begun, and the fate of Earth would be decided in the coming hours. The stakes had never been higher, and both sides knew it. The Empire, seething with revenge, was ready to strike. Humanity, fueled by a newfound sense of power and unity, was ready to defend. The final confrontation was on the horizon, and no one could predict how it would unfold. Would humanity stand firm, or would the Empire's wrath prove to be too much? The galaxy held its breath as the two forces prepared to clash. The future of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself, was about to be decided. The cold, endless void of space was filled with an unsettling silence. As the Imperial fleet advanced towards Earth, its massive warships, brimming with destructive firepower, glided through the stars like dark shadows of impending doom. Admiral Zoran stood at the helm of his flagship, gazing at the view screen. His eyes burned with a mixture of fury and determination. The humans had humiliated him once, and he would ensure that they paid for their arrogance. There would be no mercy this time. "Prepare to engage," Zoran commanded, his voice low and grim. "We end this now." Across the galaxy, General Elaine Winters was watching the Empire's movements from a hidden command center on Earth. The threat was real, and the tension in the air was palpable. She could feel the weight of every human life on her shoulders. The Empire was coming for Earth, and they would not stop until every last one of them had fallen. But General Winters was not one to back down. The humans had already proven that they were capable of standing against the mighty Empire, and they would do so again. "All ships, get ready for the incoming assault," Elaine ordered, her voice calm but steady. "We'll fight them with everything we have. Earth will not fall." Her officers nodded in agreement, each one fully aware of the stakes. There would be no second chances. The warships in orbit were already preparing their weapons, their guns primed and ready for battle. The sound of the countdown echoed through the command room. 5 minutes to engagement, the technician called out. But even as the Imperial fleet closed in, Earth was not without its defenses. The human fleet was small, but it was swift and deadly. The teleportation technology that had turned the tide in the last battle had been perfected and was now humanity's greatest asset. General Winters had kept the Empire guessing, and they would continue to do so. As the two fleets neared each other, the first wave of Imperial warships launched a barrage of missiles. They cut through the silence of space with terrifying speed, each one aimed directly at Earth's defense systems. But the humans were ready. "Activate teleportation shields," Elaine ordered, her voice commanding. The shield generators on Earth's fleet began to hum with power, and within moments, the incoming missiles vanished, only to reappear far from their intended target. The human fleet had learned to manipulate the teleportation technology, and they had found a way to use it to protect themselves. The Empire's missiles missed their mark, but their fleet didn't stop. Zoran's ships closed the gap, firing their heavy artillery and unleashing a barrage of lasers upon Earth's defenses. "Counterattack," Elaine shouted. Human warships shifted into attack formation, their weapons primed and ready. The teleportation technology hummed in the background as the humans vanished, only to reappear directly above the Imperial fleet. Within seconds, they unleashed their full firepower, launching plasma bursts, railgun rounds, and missiles into the heart of the Empire's ships. The Imperial fleet staggered under the assault, taking hits from all sides. Zoran gritted his teeth, his frustration mounting. The humans had adapted, their once feeble defense now a dangerous force. It was clear that they had learned from their previous encounters. "Regroup. Get the fleet back in formation," Zoran barked, but the damage had been done. The humans had proven that they could fight back. As the battle raged on, the human fleet continued to teleport around the Empire's ships, attacking from unexpected angles. Every time the Empire thought they had the upper hand, humanity would slip away and strike again. Back on Earth, Elaine watched the battle unfold. The human fleet was holding its ground, but the fight was far from over. The Empire was relentless, and there was still a chance they could break through. "We're holding them off, but we need to push harder," Elaine said, her brow furrowed with determination. "It's time to take the fight to them." Human warships began to focus all their firepower on the Imperial flagship, the heart of Zoran's fleet. It was time to show the Empire that humanity would not back down. "All ships, concentrate your fire on the flagship. We end this now," Elaine commanded. The human fleet launched one final assault. Waves of lasers, missiles, and plasma bursts tore through space, heading straight for Zoran's flagship. The Empire's ships scrambled to defend, but it was too late. Humanity had the advantage, and they weren't going to let it slip away. With one final explosion, the flagship of the Imperial fleet erupted into flames. Zoran's fleet faltered, and the remaining ships began to retreat. The humans had done it. They had won. As the last Imperial warships vanished into the distance, General Winters allowed herself a moment of relief. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. The Empire had been stopped, but they would return. Of that, she was certain. But for now, humanity had proven that they could stand against the might of the galaxy's greatest empire. They had defended Earth, and they had shown the Empire that they would never back down. The final battle had been won, but the story of humanity's rise was only just beginning. The silence in space was almost deafening after the battle. The remnants of the Imperial fleet drifted, their once imposing ships now nothing more than smoldering wreckage. The victory had been hard won, but humanity had managed to stand tall against the overwhelming might of the Galactic Empire. The shockwave of their victory spread across the stars. But the victory, while significant, was not the end of the story. On Earth, General Elaine Winters stood on the command deck, her hands folded behind her back, as she surveyed the holographic map of the galaxy. It was a bittersweet victory. Though they had successfully pushed the Empire back, the Empire had learned from its mistakes. The retreat would not be the end of their ambitions. They would regroup, adapt, and come again. The looming question was whether humanity could stand against the next wave. "We've won this round," Elaine said, her voice calm but filled with a sense of impending duty. "But don't mistake this for the end. The Empire will be back, and they will be angry." Her officers nodded solemnly, fully aware of the challenge that lay ahead. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity could not be wiped out so easily. The Empire's retreat might have been a defeat for them, but it was far from a final victory for humanity. The Galactic Empire, meanwhile, was already in the process of regrouping. Zoran, the once proud admiral, now sat in a cold, dimly lit war room aboard a heavily damaged flagship. His face was bruised and bloodied, but there was no defeat in his eyes. Instead, there was a burning determination. "This isn't over," Zoran muttered, his voice low and full of fury. "The humans may have beaten us today, but they've made a mistake. They've shown us they are not weak, and now we know they have the power to stand against us. We will return, stronger." He turned to his remaining officers, who were hunched over communication devices, trying to piece together information on the human fleet's tactics and technology. "Prepare for the next stage," Zoran ordered. "We will crush them, but we must do so carefully. We'll need more firepower, more precision. Next time, there will be no room for mistakes." Zoran's mind was already turning with strategies. He understood now that brute force alone wouldn't win this war. The humans had an uncanny ability to surprise, to adapt and outthink their enemies. The next phase of the invasion would have to be different, but he would not underestimate them again. Back on Earth, General Winters was analyzing the aftermath of the battle. The human fleet had sustained heavy damage, but it had held its ground. The teleportation technology, which had turned the tide in the last battle, was still a powerful asset, but it wasn't enough on its own. New defenses were already being put into place, and the warships that had survived the battle were being repaired and upgraded. "We have to keep improving," Elaine said, pacing in front of the map. "The Empire will come again, and they will come prepared. We can't let our guard down for a second." Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice from the communication console. "General, you need to see this." Elaine walked over to the console, her gaze hardening as the transmission began. A hologram flickered to life, showing an Imperial warship, vast and imposing, far larger than any they had seen before. "They've already started building bigger ships," the officer said. "The Empire isn't retreating. They're recalibrating. This is only the beginning." Elaine's eyes narrowed. The humans had fought well, but the Empire had just begun its counterattack. The humans would need to do more than just hold their ground. They would need to make bold moves if they were to stand a chance against the growing Imperial threat. "Prepare the fleet," Elaine ordered. "We don't wait for them to strike first. We hit them hard, before they can recover. This war isn't just about Earth anymore. It's about the survival of humanity across the galaxy, and we will not back down." As the human fleet began to regroup and make preparations, word spread across Earth that the war was far from over. The Empire's retreat had been only a brief pause in a much larger conflict. But now, humanity had a choice. They could let fear take hold, retreat into the shadows, and wait for the inevitable, or they could stand united, face their enemies head-on, and make the galaxy take notice. It was clear which path the humans would take. The victory at the Empire's hands had shaken the galaxy, but now the real fight was beginning. The Empire would return, but so too would humanity, stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. The time for holding back was over. Humanity had proven that they could stand against the might of the Empire once. Now they would make sure that no one would ever again underestimate their power. The galaxy would be forced to reckon with Earth, and it would soon be clear: no empire, no matter how vast or powerful, could hold sway over a people willing to fight for their survival. And as the first of the new, improved warships began to take flight, a single phrase echoed in the minds of every human, every soldier, every officer who stood on the front lines.